Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. And in this video, we're going to be looking at teams and who the first relic on that team should be. These are obviously going to be teams that you're going to get earlier on in the game, with the latest team on here being one that you'll probably get after you hit 4 million galactic power. But I want to mention it because I think it's a very good team and a really important one, especially for players who are just, kind of starting out, those newer free to play. This is a question I get asked a lot of. Who should I relic on this team? How much should I invest in them? So I'm going to show you who the first relic should be and explain kind of what the order would be after that. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. And we've got to give a huge shout out to my channel members. Thank you so much for your continued support. If you're interested in joining, there's a link down below. Otherwise, guys, just subscribe. It really helps this channel grow so much. And I really am humbled and honored that, this channel is where it is today. So thank you guys again. Let's get into our game here and let's cover this topic. So we're going to start with the first team that I would say, hey, start with a one relic here, and that is Admiral Piet. With your Imperial Troopers here, Admiral Piet needs to be your first relic. Not only do you need him for Executor, but he's going to be the one to get you fast and ready to get that turn meter train rolling. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking is, why isn't Moff Gideon on this team? Remember, when you're trying to build in this game, what I always tell people is these are your core 4 Imperial Troopers. That these 4 right here are far more important than Gideon. Because Piet is, Gideon for a lot of players is just a crutch because you can't make Piet fast enough. So in my mind, it's a lot better to have these 4 here. You want to definitely relic Piet first. He's going to be the one to get you speed, get you on your way. After that, I think Dark Trooper would be your next best relic because he is your damage dealer. Then move over to Range Trooper because Range Trooper has a pretty, it's an okay base speed, but he can be your bridge. And by your bridge, that means that, okay, Piet went and took his turn. Now Range Trooper's going to go boost our turn meter even more and get us back around to Dark Trooper and General Veers. That's the big reason why I include, that order there. And then Veers kind of being that last relic where, even though he's a requirement for Sith Eternal, I think these 3 being at relics benefits the team in a much more significant way. The only argument I would make there is that Veers with these guys in 3v3, you're not really going to use range as much, so you could relic Veers to try and take advantage of Datacrons. I will mention that. Alright, next we've got the Iden Versio team, and I think this is a great example for you guys where you want relics on Iden first. Iden is she's the pilot, she's the vast majority of your, what I would call your, DPS. Because Death Trooper, after you get a kill, you can get the death mark, right, on a character, which is huge. And that's the other way you kill characters. But Iden is the way you're going to get that first one done. I have Colonel Stark here. He's a requirement for Sith Eternal. Also just a really solid damage dealer. Colonel Stark actually can hit pretty decently hard. So I wouldn't say he's a horrible relic option here. Scout Trooper would again be a great one to kind of throw in the mix here. Once we get the, new Imperial Remnant team, this could change. But Death Trooper, Shore Trooper, the other 2 that I would mention because they are pilots, and I definitely think they have some really, really good synergy with Iden. So I really like this squad right here. If you had to replace Scout Trooper with him going to a Remnant squad or, whoever, Stormtrooper definitely a really good shout here. Alright, next we've got the Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron team. So this is your core part of that team, Qui-Gon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Jedi Knight Anakin. If you don't have Ki-Adi-Mundi, Mace Windu can go in here. I've seen a lot of different variants of this. I'll put Mace in here just for the sake of, the video. Your first relic here, it has to be Jedi Knight Anakin. You do not put anybody else in this team to relics before getting Jedi Knight Anakin there. The way you use this team, in reality, is if you don't have a lot of gear on these guys, just bring them on offense. I think if you don't, because what they'll be able to do for you on offense is probably superior to what they'll manage to do on defense. When you get them all to relic levels, that's when you can kind of make that decision. I think a lot of players still try to, bring them on offense. Now I think that's kind of been the new thing. I personally still place this team on defense. I think they're a fantastic defensive team. Either they're going to eat up a really strong team or they get you a hold. The one area here that I think, with the Jedi Knight Anakin, if he's your only relic, you're basically banking on getting a single hold is your best case scenario, and then someone's going to clean it up. So it is one thing that I want to mention, but Jedi Knight Anakin definitely is your first relic. All right, the General Grievous team. In this scenario, so this is a case of, hey, you're not building General Skywalker yet. You're not going to go and get these droids there. General Grievous should be your first relic. General Grievous, with even these guys at like gear 10-ish, General Grievous's relic levels, when they start dying, if your opponent isn't careful, your opponent doesn't really understand how to stop this team, General Grievous will wreck people. Now, again, a similar situation to this one up here, where you're probably looking at, a single hold, maybe two, depending on the situation. But General Grievous just can really go off in this team. This is one that I think a lot of players don't fully understand just how good this can be on defense, because our king savages it. But if your opponent doesn't have Wampa or needs to use Wampa somewhere else, or, this, even with low gear, if this eats Wampa, you're living the dream, right? That's a solid win for you. So, and then offensively, it will get you terrible banners, but Grievous could probably still beat some stuff. All right, this Nightsister team, I put them below General Grievous for a big reason. So Daka is your first relic here. Daka, 100% your first relic here. The only reason my Asajj is at relic levels was for the General Skywalker event. If I could go back in time, I probably would have kept her at gear 12, but it is what it is. So Daka is the MVP here. If you get Daka to relics, this right here, this team has beat fully relic General Grievous squads. It's so good. As long as you can keep Daka alive, which means you need to keep her days free and all the rest of that stuff. But if you can keep Daka alive, she will just constantly revive this team. I've had it plenty of times where Daka's the only one left. She's got her turn meter, brings the whole Nightsister crew back. She's phenomenal. She is the real MVP on this team. Which is kind of crazy, because a lot of these other teams, it's like, damage. Hey, you got to get super fast and then damage. Where here, you're building the character that just has this massive health pool and then brings everyone back. Because this team isn't about overwhelming your opponent with lots of damage. It's gaining all this turn meter, inflicting plague, which you don't need a lot of high gear for. Because plague is dependent on the enemy it's hitting, not on the level of your characters here. All right, next one here is the Maul Mandalorian squad. Now, this is a more interesting kind of team, because you won't get Maul until you're over 4 million galactic power. However, at that point, if you don't, you should have Beskar Mando Relic, but let's say you don't. Even getting this team to, say, gear 12, gear 11, gear 12, and then having Maul at Relic levels, you will have a really good offensive team. I'd even make an argument that some players will trip up on defense with this squad, but I think Maul is well worth those relics early here. He can carry this team. You get that turn meter train started with Canderous, and it ruins people. I think it would surprise a lot of players just how good this team can be at lower gear. Again, because of the turn meter from Canderous, you've got some damage immunity mechanics. You really can do some awesome stuff here. I would 1000% recommend and say that Maul, if you don't, and again, this is all assuming you don't already have some of these guys at relic levels by the time you get them, Maul would be a fantastic one. All right. The Commander Luke Skywalker team, CLS needs to be your first relic here. Now, this is assuming, again, I'm going to say that you need to have this full team here. You need to have the full team to really make the use of this here. The reason Luke is your first relic is because of 3PO and Chewie's unique ability, where they're going to gain 40% of the leaders, max health, protection, offense, defense, potency, and tenacity, and other rebel allies gain half that amount. So, if you relic your Commander Luke Skywalker before you take any of the rest of these guys to relic levels, they're going to get, Chewpio gets 40% of Luke's stats, and everybody else gets 20%, which basically is like adding a relic level to them. So if you go and would say relic Han first, okay, your Han is dealing more damage, but the rest of your team is only gaining offense equivalent to Commander Luke. But you relic Commander Luke, your team is gaining offense equal to that of a relic character, basically taking them to relics. It's one of the key linchpins here that I think a lot of times players miss that with this unique ability, even with Chewpio at gear 11, if you can't get him to 7-star yet, gear 11, you have this and Luke is at relic levels. He's gaining 40% of Luke's stats anyway, which basically make him, gear 12 or more. So you've got to have Luke first. After Luke, I think that's when, you really, it's kind of I'd say C-3PO is definitely the last one you put gear on. But once you get into this area, I'd say it's really hard to go wrong. I could see a lot of people telling you Chewbacca first because of guard, which I would probably agree with. I could see some people saying Chewpio because of the assist. I could see people saying Han. I mean, that list just gets like, this is when it gets really muddled in here. I say my gut, if I had to really, fill, life or death situation, who you picking, I think I'd go Chewbacca, Han, and then 3PO and Chewie would be my relic order. I think Chewbacca just is, with the, you want that guard. A lot of players will target him before these guys anyway. So I would get Chewbacca there, get Han, 3PO, Chewie, then kind of C-3PO at the end because he doesn't deal any damage. And normally players aren't targeting C-3PO, so you don't have to worry. All right, so the bounty hunters here. So we've got these guys, Bossk, Boba Fett, Greef, and Mando. So, again, I'm not saying you relic all of these characters at once. But, if you're asking, hey, who should I relic first? Bossk is your answer. One, you need him for Executor. But two, you can get him fast and get him taunting early. It's going to cause a lot more problems for your opponents. So you get Bossk up there, get him to relics. Next, I would say Boba Fett. I actually think Boba Fett gains a lot from relic levels. He gains a lot of damage. He gets healthier. Him being able to get some kills and bounty hunters resolve coming back. It's a really, really big problem that I don't think players always fully recognize that, with Mandalorian, he also has bounty hunters resolve. But the one problem, right, is that he only gains it at the start of the encounter until he's defeated, right? So he doesn't ever gain it back. Whereas Boba Fett, on his, he gains bounty hunters resolve, and then, where is it at here? When he gains pretty sure it's somewhere that it says, if he, where does it say that? I know it says it somewhere. Yeah, at the start of the encounter and whenever he defeats an enemy. That's where it was. Wasn't even looking. When he defeats an enemy, he recovers, he gains bounty hunter's resolve until he's defeated. So you're, at relic levels, he's dealing more damage against lower level teams. Early on, that's a great utility for Boba. Then I would probably say Greef and Mando kind of after them. Mando definitely the squishier of the two, but I think Greef provides a little bit more survivability to the team that maybe Mando, hey, you get your kill and you're done. But again, Bossk and Boba Fett first. And remember, this is a video saying, this is the order. I'm not telling you, hey, go get this whole team to relic. Go get this whole team to relic. Go do this team. This is saying, hey, if you're trying to look for what order to level up these characters and relic them, this is the way I would do it. And this needs to happen over the over the time of your account. This isn't a all at once kind of situation. So Jedi Knight Revan is an interesting one. You can make an argument for Jedi Knight Revan himself and for Grandmaster Yoda. Grandmaster Yoda is a far more versatile character in the sense that you could use him with Padme or with Jedi. Jedi Knight Revan, you're kind of stuck with just Jedi. What I like about Jedi Knight Revan, if being at relics, is just that I think he gets a lot more survivability, and causes a lot of problems for players. With Grandmaster Yoda at relics, when he starts being able to really deal damage, that's when he gets scary. So, I kind of look at both of those characters as you could do one or the other, and I don't think you're wrong. After that point, I think I would pick Jolee over Bastila if you had to pick one to relic. Bastila is needed for Leviathan, but that's such a long way away for a lot of players. Jolee, I think, provides a little bit more. He's a little bit scarier to deal with than Bastila. Again, I don't have Jolee at relic levels, so if I'm saying Jolee first, that was my intention until Bastila was needed for Leviathan, so, kind of, had the game decide for me what my order was going to be there. All right, and then the next one we're looking at here, so we've got Emperor Palpatine, Darth Vader, and Mara Jade. These three are kind of your key Empire characters outside of those Imperial Troopers. So definitely Darth Vader first. He's the first relic in the game, almost no matter what you're going for, in my opinion, but especially going for Executor. That's the first one you're going to get there. Darth Vader just so good. He turns into a solo character, especially for a lot of players early on in the game. He's your Geonosian counter. You don't have Traya yet, Vader's your answer. But then for Palpatine and Mara Jade, I would actually say you want to do Palpatine before Mara. Mara Jade is already very fast. So you shouldn't have problems getting Mara Jade to the point where she can beat a lot of those other teams pre-relics. But Emperor Palpatine to relic levels will help you do something that I think a lot of players forget is kind of key to him, is that he's the damage on that team. Mara Jade is not the damage. She's the facilitator for turn meter, but Palpa's the one who's doing most of the attacking because he's assisting whenever Mara Jade's taking turns. But then Mara Jade does her stuff, right? She takes her turns, put shock on the field, and then Palpatine is just going to sit there and shock and shock and shock and shock, and they're going to pay for their lack of vision. Hope you guys get that reference. He's just going to keep taking turns, and so by having him at relic levels before Mara Jade, you're going to be able to deal more damage and keep the possibility of that team getting a turn and potentially cleansing or running a train on your team. You really want Palpatine to be relics and then Mara Jade. That's just the way I feel about that. The final 3 characters here, Darth Revan, Malak, and Bastila. In my opinion, you gotta relic Malak first. Malak is such a tough character for a lot of players to deal with. And even at my GP, I've still had people fail on I've run like some random teams with Malak at times, and he is consistently still the one that most players fail the most on. He's, definitely that character that a lot of players struggle the most with. I sound so crazy because you're like, oh, well, you've got to do the event without him, without relics on Revan and Bastila. Yes. But Malak is that's how good I think he is, that you want him to relic levels first before Darth Revan and Bastila. Now, the other thing you're going to say is, well, I'm not going to get Malak to 7-star for a long time. Come on, guys. You should have saved up your currency to know if you're going for Malaks. It's the same thing with General Skywalker, right? If you're saving for those characters, you better have the currency to take them to 7-star as soon as possible and then get them to relics. It will benefit you so much. So that's the just characters for a lot of you early players of like, hey, these are like the one relic I would do on that team first. And to kind of, cap it all off, if you're still watching, you get a little bit more advice because, you guys are, sticking around towards the end, that you obviously want to have this whole team relic, but it's not going to happen overnight. And I think it's better to have these characters, to have a whole relic team at relics, or, a Piet, Iden, Anakin, GG, Daka. You get the picture, like a single relic on a bunch of teams or 5 relics. I would take a single relic on a bunch of teams. Because there you're spreading the wealth. That, yes, one relic team could be very good. But then, what about the rest of your teams? Are they just going to kind of fall flat? But by having some of these key characters at relic levels, it makes a massive difference to your account. So that's the video. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. As always, make sure you like this video, subscribe, comment. I love all you. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.